Good Tuesday morning, everyone. Welcome, to the latest episode of Tuesday Talks. It is such a beautiful day outside. If you are living in North Georgia, you are living in the best time of the year. I mean, it is so great. The weather is awesome. It is awesome to be outside. If you haven't taken a step outside, go outside and just enjoy the beautiful day that God has given us. Because I know winter is coming. It's going to be a little bit colder coming up, and my Floridian blood is definitely going to be feeling it. But it's a wonderful, wonderful time of the year. It's also a time of the year where I'm constantly on Saturdays. I'm watching a lot of football, or I'm watching a lot of sports. We're getting here to the end of the baseball season, and if you're a Braves fan, especially if you're living here in North Georgia, you're paying attention to what's going on in baseball and the things that are taking place. But one thing that comes up in sports, it comes up in politics, it comes up in business, is the idea of fairness and not being cheated out of something. And we get all up in arms if somebody is caught cheating or things aren't being done that we think is right. It's not fair. And I remember a story back in Esther. Esther's a book that we love, that little story there with her becoming queen and ultimately kind of being a savior and protector for the Jews as we end up that story. But do you ever remember why Esther becomes queen? Well, if you ever take a chance, go open the Bible sometime, just read Esther chapter 1, because there's another queen. Her name is Vashti. And Vashti is doing nothing wrong. She's being queen. And when you look at that story, the king is having this great party around, and we're getting here to the last time, and they've drunk a little too much, if you understand what I'm saying. And he's like, oh, I want to call Vashti in. And Vashti apparently was a very beautiful lady, and he wanted to show her off inappropriately. And she goes, no, I'm not going. I'm going to stand up for what is right, and I'm not going to be shown off in this way and in this manner. Well, of course, the king gets mad, and the other people that are with him kind of get mad and says, oh, if the queen did this, then what about our wives? They're going to do this. And she loses her place on the throne. And, of course, then eventually she is replaced by Esther. But I think the essence of that story is that she loses out because she was doing what was right, and she was standing up for what is right. And you and I, as we live in this world, there are going to be times where we are going to stand up for what is right, and things aren't going to go our way. And you can say, well, that's not fair. And I know, and that's hard, especially when you're doing what's right, and you see other people not doing what's right and cheating and going along the way, and seemingly not even bothered by things that are going on around in this world or everything else. And we can say, that's not fair. Let me remind you, Jesus said in the Sermon on the Mount, in Matthew chapter 5, verse 45, where he says, God sends the sun and the rain to fall on the just and the unjust alike. And sometimes things in life just happen because it's just not fair. And I hate it because I wish I had a better answer to be able to give than just say, hey, it's part of life. But the beauty is that God sees all. I'm reminded back in Hebrews chapter 11 of all the things that the people went through, especially when you get through that last part of chapter 11 where there's some names mentioned, but not a lot of names mentioned. We spent a lot of time at the beginning of that chapter of what Abel did, of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and all those people. But look at the last section there in chapter 11. Of all these people, they did what was right, and it says these all died in faith. That's where you and I live. We don't live by the things of this world. Rob talked about that on Sunday morning. We don't live by the things of this world, even though we live in the world. But we live and strive for something better. And though things may not always go right here on earth, we have a home that is waiting that's way better than this. We have a God who cares. And you know what? As Paul said, if God is for us, who could be against us? I hope that you have a wonderful day. I hope that you stay doing what's right, regardless of what's happening in the world around you. And I promise you, you will be blessed because your God cares for you. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next week on Tuesday Talks.